Hi, Lone Star students. This is Cindy Kramer-Sledge, and this is the lecture on Chapter 11, which is Emotions, Stress, and Health. So let's get started. First of all, definition of an emotion. We all know what emotions are. We all have emotions, and they're our body's adaptive response to situations. They're pretty natural. I don't know if anyone actually teaches them to us. I think we're just born with them, and we all have our own individual emotions that go along with what we're feeling. But the body responses that go along with these emotions are interesting, such as butterflies in our stomach when fear arises, or nervousness or anxiety. You get butterflies in your stomach, that fluttering feeling. Sweating when you're nervous. Have you ever tried to tell yourself to stop sweating? What you actually do is sweat more. And your heart rate increasing when you're angry. Those are all body responses that you have very little control over, and they're linked to certain emotions. The way we express emotions are usually through our facial expressions, our body language, and our intonation of our voice. So if you look at the two pictures, you have the family on the left. Now, chances are a lot of us do not speak the same language that they do, but we can look at them and we can tell what emotion they're feeling. They seem very happy based on their facial expressions. Likewise, the family on the right, they seem very happy based on their body language and their facial expressions. So a lot of people believe that language, emotional language, is nonverbal. You don't have to say any words. People can tell by your body language, by your facial expression. Now, detecting emotion. Two very interesting questions for you. Do you think it's easier to spot an angry face in a crowd or a happy face? So watch what happens on the screen here. Now, do you recall what you saw? And did anything stand out? In the very first ones, let me go backwards. In the very first one, there's a happy face in the second row. In the next one, there's an angry face in the bottom row. Do you think women are better than men at detecting nonverbal cues? I bet a lot of you said yes. Why is that? We all have our own reasons. Several things I've heard in the past that women pay more attention to details. Women are more nurturing. Women care more. Women are just more observant. Men just don't notice. Men are more factual. Men are more problem solvers, not trying to figure out. They just want to fix the problem. So who knows? But research does show that women are better than men at detecting nonverbal cues. And men, since you're not so good at it, that's part of the reason why you can't figure us women out. All right, so let's talk about one very popular emotion, anger. Causes of anger. All right, I think this first one is pretty self-explanatory. I think a lot of us get angry for this very reason. People become angry with friends and loved ones who commit wrongdoings. They do things wrong, especially if those wrongdoings are on purpose or are unjustified and avoidable, right? Wouldn't you agree that that is a good reason to get angry at someone? What I find really surprising is what made the list as well, foul odors. Now, do y'all get angry when you smell a foul odor? Or do you just get annoyed? There are people who get angry and just lose their cool because of a bad smell. High temperatures, well, certainly I can see that one. In areas of high temperatures like Houston, crime rates, violent crime rates increase. People really do lose their temper and have very little patience and just get angry. Traffic jams, another one that Houston is infamous for, and aches and pains. Those are some real reasons of why people get angry. I'm sure you have your own list of things that make you angry. I know I do. Anger is habit forming. If you express anger, what it does is it breeds more anger, and it becomes reinforcing because you probably get what you want, and then it becomes more habit forming. And if you ever noticed, if you start to talk about a situation with someone, something that made you very angry, and you start talking about it all over again, you'll notice that your body, your emotions, you're starting to get angry all over again. So sometimes talking about it again and getting all riled up is not really good for you. It's certainly not good for your blood pressure. Happiness is a much better emotion to talk about. Happy people tend to have a life that's really positive and healthy for them because they view the world as being a safe place. They're able to make decisions a whole lot easier, probably because they just don't care either way, and they're a lot more cooperative. Now here's where this may pay off in your future. People who are happy tend to rate job applicants more favorably. So if you're ever on a job interview and the person's not very happy, you need to be telling them a joke or complimenting them or something. Get them happy or they're not going to rate you very well. And happy people tend to live healthier, energized, and more satisfying lives. Research shows it takes a lot of energy to be grumpy. It takes a lot of energy to be angry. It's exhausting, right? You remember the sympathetic nervous system. When you're angry, sympathetic nervous system gets activated, and that requires a lot of energy. But if you stay cool and you stay happy, well, it actually gives you energy. It actually makes you feel better. If you don't agree with me or don't believe me, just try it. Just try it. Try to prove me wrong. All right, here's something else that I want you to know about. It's called the feel good to do good phenomenon. What this means is that when we feel happy, we are more willing to help others. Well, it works in reverse too. If other people are happy, they're more willing to help us. Think of this scenario. Let's say you take a psychology exam and you make 100, and you go home and your mom says, "Hey, would you mind helping me move some furniture around?" You say, "Sure, no problem, anything at all, woohoo!" Right after I hang this 100 on the refrigerator, right? Same scenario, you make a 50 on your psychology exam and you go home and your mom says, "Hey, would you mind helping me move some furniture?" And you flip out. "You're always asking me to do things. Why? I'm having a bad day, blah, blah, blah." Totally different situation, and it's all because of what happened. Feel good, do good phenomenon. When you're happy, you're a whole lot more helpful to people. If you're about to ask someone for money or ask someone to help you, again, make sure they're happy. Otherwise, your chances are greatly decreased that they're going to say yes or give you that money. All right, this is not on the exam. I just wanted you to know this for your own personal knowledge because I just think this is fascinating. So when you wake up in the morning, you wake up pretty neutral, or even positive. Well, your positive emotion, your positive mood gets to its maximum about 6 to 7 hours after waking up. So you're feeling the most positive about 6 to 7 hours after you get out of bed. Your negative mood, if you wake up in a bad mood, well, you might as well just go right back to bed because that negative mood is generally going to stay with you throughout the day. So there really is some truth to that, waking up on the wrong side of the bed, because it sticks with you. So you might as well go back to bed, try and get up on the other side. All right, so does being wealthy make you happier? I'm not really sure because I'm not wealthy. I sure would like to try it out to see if I could be. I'm pretty sure I'd be happy. Well, most of us would agree. Money is a good thing, but it certainly can't buy you happiness. We all probably know someone who has tons of money and isn't happy, or we could think of someone. But wealth is like health. If you don't have it, it can breed misery. It can make you miserable. It can make life really, really tough for you. But having it is no guarantee of happiness. And honestly, people who live in third world countries who are asked if they're satisfied with their life, most of them say yes, very satisfied. They like their lives because, well, they don't expect any different, so they don't get disappointed. They're just happy with what they have. All right, that brings us now to stress, which I always joke that you guys know the most about stress because, well, you'll see in a few slides that your age bracket, we are the most stressed in our whole society. You have a lot going on, and I understand that. I was there at one point, and I do know it's very stressful to be in your shoes. But what is stress? Well, stress can be physiological. That means physical. Stress can be psychological. That means emotional or mental. Stress can be a response to a situation. You feel stressed. But bottom line, Stress is anything that's going to threaten or challenge you. And what it requires is some type of adaptation or some type of adjustment, some type of change. Stress doesn't just go away on its own. You have to do something. You have to change something. Luckily, when we feel severe stress, there are trained individuals that help us, because what happens to a lot of us when you go through a fire in your house or a hurricane or a car accident, the stress becomes so overwhelming, it demobilizes us. It makes us not be able to move, not be able to think, not be able to function. It just freezes us. And luckily for us, there are people who help in that situation. Now, stress, once again, here's our fight or flight, our sympathetic nervous system. When stress enters your life because it's a challenge or it's some kind of threat, our body reacts physically with our sympathetic nervous system. And we get that feeling of either staying and fighting the stress or running from it. But stress is a very slippery concept, meaning sometimes it's the stimulus. It's the thing causing the stress. Missing an appointment, missing a test, getting a flat tire. Those are all very stressful things. But other times, it's a response to a situation. Sweating while taking a test. Feeling nauseous because you're nervous. Things like that. That can be a response. I love this poor little zebra here with his stripes falling off. It's probably the equivalent of human beings losing their hair when they're so stressed out. All right, stress is also a process by which we cope with the environment, and specifically environmental threats and challenges. All right, so are you the type of person who deals well with stress? I remember asking in class who were my procrastinators, who were people who waited to the last minute to study, who were crammers, and it actually works for them because they need that pressure, they need that stress to motivate them. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, that's how we all should be, using stress to our advantage. So take a look at the chart here. Right here, you have a stressful event. Notice I put tough math test instead of tough psychology test. Now, you have two ways to respond to this. The top one, you can see this math test as a threat. Something really terrible, really hard. And you might say things like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this test, or yikes, this is beyond me, or I don't know what I'm doing. And then what happens? Your body, your emotions react, and you become so stressed that you're distracted. And you're not going to do well on that test because your anxiety is too high, you're just too stressed, you can't focus. This is not ideal. This I don't want you to do. Instead, try this. You've got that tough math test. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to be a challenge. But see it truly as a challenge and tell yourself, okay, I've been going to class. I know this stuff. I studied last night. I'm now going to show the instructor just how much I know. And now that stress, that pressure is used to motivate you to be aroused, to be focused, to really perform well under pressure. Now, how do you do this? How do you go from up here to down here? Well, I'll tell you, it takes tremendous practice. And the very first step is talking to yourself. We all have that negative voice that tells us we can't do things, that we're going to fail, that this is too hard. You need to ignore that voice. You need to pay attention to the one that says, all right, let me at least get a chance at this. Let me at least try. Let me see what I can do. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. All right, so there's one theory that we'll learn during this chapter. It's called the General Adaptation Syndrome, and it's a stress theory. The person who created it is Selye, and he basically said any stress response, any reaction we have to a situation is similar. We go through three phases. Any kind of stress you have in your life, big stress, small stress, medium stress, you're going to go through these three phases or these three stages. Let me just look at the next slide for a minute. Okay. So the first phase, the first stage, it's called the alarm stage. Phase 1, the alarm stage. Now here's what happens. Let's say you're sitting in class and you're paying attention, and all of a sudden your cell phone goes off. You get a text message that says someone you love has just been in a terrible car accident. What happens? What do you feel? What do you do? Well, most likely your heart starts beating faster. You start to feel a little bit anxious, and you immediately think, I've got to get out of here. Now, when you first got the information, here's the phone call, you kind of froze for a little bit, right? You took it in, you processed it. You didn't really know what to do, right? Oh my goodness, what's happening? What? Did I read that correct? Someone's hurt? And then you think, I've got to get out of here. I got to go. I can't stay here. I've got to go see what's going on. I got to figure this out. You get a burst of energy. Burst of energy. After you have that little dip, you get a burst of energy that gets you going. That says, oh my gosh, I've got to take care of this. Then you enter into stage 2 or phase 2. This is called the resistance stage. You'll notice that this stage is pretty long. That's not good. You always want your resistance stage to be short, because this is the time that you're battling with the stress. You're fighting the stress. Now, that may seem like a good thing. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm dealing with the stress. I'm dealing with it. Really, that's terrible for your body. Because do you know what happens? You know what happens when you're fighting stress? Well, your immune system is not functioning well. So you might notice, think about your own life. Do you tend to get colds and illnesses during finals week, or during around the holidays when it's very stressful? A lot of times when your life is stressed, your immune system will definitely respond because it's not working as well as it could be. Stress takes a toll on your body. And you know, we didn't always know that. We didn't always know that the two were related. But now we've done extensive research in this area. And these are reasons why when you go see your doctor for a physical or a checkup, they'll ask you about your lifestyle. Not to be nosy, but they call it a wellness checkup. They want to know, are you smoking? Are you drinking? Are you getting enough sleep? Do you have a lot of stress in your life? Because it is all related to how well your body is going to function. If you want to be healthy, you want to fight off illnesses, then you need to get rid of stress, or you need to decrease it as much as you can. All right, but let's say you're fighting off the stress in this stage 2, and you make it to stage 3 or phase 3. You never want to make it to phase 3. You want to get done with the stress in this one and be over with. Because if you make it to phase 3, this is called the exhaustion stage, and this means the stress won. This means you have nothing left to fight. Nothing. Now you'll notice this line that goes across here, that is the normal level of stress. We all need some stress in our life to function. This is the normal level. If your stress level's up here, well, it's not good, right? Your sympathetic nervous system is activated. You're really putting a toll on your body. Once you get here, it's just downhill. And honestly, a lot of times this stage means death. I know that sounds so dramatic, but think about a person who just got a diagnosis of cancer, right? This is a pretty morbid example, but it really illustrates how this theory works. So someone's visiting with their doctor, and their doctor says, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but you have the final stages of cancer. And the person is frozen. They're taking this information in. They can't understand. What? But then they get this burst of energy. All right, well, I'm going to fight. I'm going to do what I can. All right, let's go. What do I need to do? And then they fight, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight, and they're using up all of their energy, everything. And then the cancer wins, and they end up dying. So that's an example of how this can work. But again, what you want to try to do is take care of your stress when it's happening. Don't let it go on for this long, and really try not to get to stage 3. Okay, so let's talk about some stressful life events. Catastrophic events. Catastrophic events are life and death things. Things that are just so massive and just really take a toll on us. Now, as an entire human being race, would you say, do you think that we handle things, catastrophic things, pretty well, or does it destroy us? Well, the truth is, what the research shows us is that we're really good at handling the catastrophic events. Things like earthquakes brings us together. We help one another. We survive it. Combat stress, floods, 9/11. Now, a lot of these can lead to PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a very serious disorder. We will talk more about this disorder when we get to the chapter on psychological disorders, but just to give you an overview of it, this is an anxiety disorder, and this can really affect a person's life. It can interfere with normal functioning. It affects sleep. It affects personality. It affects all kinds of things that prevents the person from really living a stress-free life. PTSD requires help from professionals, and there are people that never get over it. So a lot of times these catastrophic events can lead to PTSD, but for the most part, human beings are pretty resilient. We lean on each other. We deal with catastrophic events as a whole pretty well. We recover, we rebuild, we move on. Now, significant life changes, things like the death of a loved one, a divorce, a loss of a job, or even a promotion, which a promotion is a good thing, right? Right, but a promotion can be so stressful because of the increase in responsibility, maybe the increase in hours, maybe the increase in expectations. It can be very, very stressful. Well, any of these life changes can leave individuals vulnerable to disease, open to disease, at risk for disease. They get sick a lot. So here's what I was telling you why you guys are the experts on stress. This is people in our society who experience high stress. And you'll notice the highest age bracket is 18 to 19. Second highest bracket is 20 to 24. So what are you all so stressed about? I'm kidding. I know exactly what you're all so stressed about. Now, as you get older, they say, research says that your stress decreases. I don't really think that's what's going on. I think you just get better at coping with it or dealing with it or caring a little bit less about the stuff that used to stress you out. All right, here's the stuff that really, really stresses us out. Remember I said it's not usually the catastrophic events that destroy us. It's the little stressors, the hassles that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And the reason why is because there's so many and they never seem to go away. We're never done with them. With a catastrophic event, at least there's an end to it. There's an end, and then you can move on. With these hassles, a lot of times, there's just no end in sight. You're always going to be dealing with this or some variation of it. And some examples are rush hour traffic, long lines, stress from your job or stress from school, your psychology class. Burnout, right? Burnout is emotional exhaustion. Just can't take it anymore. Relationship trouble, hectic schedules. All of those things are hassles. I know you could probably add 5 or 6 more things to this list. The good thing is, though, what really does help us get through, because how do we deal with all these hassles if we have them every day? Well, we have these things in our lives called uplifts, good things that happen, positive experiences that happen, and they tend to cancel out the hassles. So for example, if you're so stressed out because you have 3 tests in one day and you're studying and what a hassle, but then you get an A on all 3 of those tests, well, that's awesome. That's probably going to make you want to study again next time, even though it was a hassle. A compliment, finding money, getting flowers, or an easy day of traffic. Now, what you might notice is that a lot of these uplifts you can't really give to yourself. You have to give them to others. I mean, you can stand in front of the mirror and give yourself a compliment, but it's just not the same as if someone else tells you that you look nice. So, your contribution to this society, your duty as a good citizen is to give uplifts to other people, hoping that people will give you uplifts as well. So go around and compliment people. I'm not suggesting throwing money around so people can find it, but you might do that in your own household. If you have a significant other who's really stressed out or really grumpy, you might want to hide some money and let them find it. Maybe that might make them happy. Who knows? And with flowers, yes, you can give people flowers and that will make their day, but Just a little fact for you. It's the actual sniffing of the flowers. Sniffing fresh cut flowers decreases the stress hormone in your brain. You believe that? It's really true. And it's one of the reasons that if you go buy a stress relieving candle or stress relieving bath salts, there's always some type of flower extract in there. So if you give someone flowers, make sure they sniff them. Say, here, sniff these flowers. It'll decrease your stress. Maybe next time you study, have some flowers nearby so you can sniff them. It will make you feel a little bit better. All right, look at this list and tell me, these are the 10 most common hassles for college students. I want to see if you agree with this list, if there's anything that's left off of this list. I think number 10 is on there, being lonely. This research was done with college students who go away to school, away from home. And I think they miss their families and stuff. It's a little different for community college because you guys don't live at the college. You do get to go home, and you probably never get a chance to be lonely. One thing I think is missing from this list is I see nothing on here about finances. I know an awful lot of college students who worry about money, who have to work a couple of jobs to get through college. I know I did. So finances were a big thing for me. I found that surprising that was missing from this list. All right, couple of questions here for you to see what you think. Unpredictable stressors are more difficult to cope with, more difficult to deal with than predictable stressors are. Would you say that's true, or would you say that's false? So stress that you don't know is going to happen is more difficult than stress you do know is going to happen. So an example is you get a flat tire on your way to school. Is that harder to deal with than knowing you have to save money to get new tires? What I've noticed in the last several years is that college students tend to think the predictable stress is more stressful. But what the research shows us is that the unpredictable stress, and when you probably get to be my age, you'll understand that unpredictable stress is way more difficult to deal with than predictable stress. And it's because it surprises us and we're not ready for it and we feel a little bit out of control. Now let's try another one. When we have perceived control means we think we have control. We may not even have control, but we think we do. When we have perceived control over our lives, we have better physical and psychological well-being. So we feel better when we think we have control. Do you think that's true, or do you think that's false? That's actually true. When we think we're in control, we feel better. They did a study in a retirement home, in a nursing home. And what they did was they split the residents into two groups, one who had perceived control, one who did not. And what I mean by perceived control, this group that they said had control, well, they let them choose what their meal was going to be out of a couple of choices. They let them choose what the activity was going to be out of a couple of choices. The other group, well, they just told them, here's what you're having for dinner, here's what you're doing tonight. And at the end of the study, it turned out that the people who got to choose, well, they were just healthier, and they were happier, and they lived longer than the people who didn't get to choose. So that's interesting. We all like control, especially the older you get. You tend to like to have control over your own life. The final question, we are less stressed when we have the power to do something about it. Would you say that's true, or would you say that's false? It's actually true. Even if we don't use the power to do anything about it, just knowing that we have the power to do something about it, well, that tends to decrease our stress. Well, yeah, this is a pretty stressful problem, but I know I could fix it. I'm not as stressed anymore. So interesting. All three of these questions are true. All right. Coping with stress, dealing with stress. How do we do it? Because honestly, you're never going to get away from stress. You're never going to have a stress-free life. There's always going to be something to stress you out or something that happens that you don't have control over that's going to, cause you to be stressed. So what do you do? Well, there's a couple of ways that we talk about. One is problem-focused coping. This is focused on the problem. See, problem focused, focus on the problem. Changing the circumstances, solving the problem. All right, let me give you an example. Let's say you have a job and you can't stand your boss. You hate her. She's a terrible person. She's mean. She's incompetent. She's just plain awful. Well, if you use problem-focused coping, you would get a new job, right? Fix the problem. I can't stand her. I don't want to be around her. I'm going to get a new job. So anything when there's stress involved, if you can fix the problem, then fix the problem. You're broke. You don't have any money to pay your rent. How would you fix that problem? Go get a job. Okay, fix the problem. Problem-focused coping. But now let's be realistic. You can't always go and get a new job. You can't always go and just fix problems. Sometimes you're in a situation that you can't change. You can't do anything about it. So what do you do then? Well, then you might switch to what we call emotion-focused coping. I can't change the circumstances, but I can change how I react to it. I can change how I feel about it. So let's go back to the original example I gave you. You have this terrible, awful boss. And yeah, you'd like to do problem-focused coping and get a new job, but you just can't. You need this job. So now you switch to emotion-focused coping and you change the way you react to your boss. What does that mean? Well, start accepting that she's never going to change. This is what we do as human beings. We have this little thing that we call hope, and we always hope that someone's going to be different. Even though ever since you've known this woman, she's been an awful witch. You still hope one day that you're going to come in. Today's the day that she's not going to be mean. She's going to actually be nice to me. And you hold on to that hope in the back of your mind. Well, this is the one time that I'm going to tell you, let go of the hope. Start accepting that she's never going to change. It's not personal. It feels personal, but it's not. It's her. That's just the way she is. She treats everyone like that. Be thankful that you're not in her family, right? And once you accept that she's never going to be different, all of a sudden you'll notice, I don't care as much. I'm not expecting her to be different, so I'm expecting her to be exactly the way she is. Wow, you know what? I'm not as stressed about it anymore. And then in the rare occasion, if she is nice, it seems like such a nice treat, such a nice surprise. So emotion-focused coping is really focusing on yourself and how you're going to deal with this stress, because you can't get rid of the stress itself. There is one more way that we cope with stress, and it's called proactive coping. I'm not going to test you on this, but I just want to tell you this for your own personal knowledge. Proactive coping. It's something that I do a ton of because, I just have to with my lifestyle. I'm just very busy. Lots of kids, lots of people in my family, lots of jobs. It's just very, very busy. So proactive coping is doing things in advance. Remember I told you when we talked about memory, and I said I have this great memory, but really I just know myself, and I know I'm not a morning person, so I will pack things up the night before. Well, that's proactive coping. Rather than stress myself out in the morning getting everything ready, I'll do it the night before so I'm prepared and I don't have to have that stress in the morning. So proactive coping is doing anything in advance. Not waiting until the night before your final to study for your final. Doing it in advance. Planning ahead. Trying to take care of things. Being proactive about it so you don't let all that stress pile up. All right, social support. Very, very, very important to help you survive through stress. Now, remember when I told you that you guys had the highest stress, your age bracket, 18 to 19 and then 20 to 24. Well, the good news is social support, people in your corner, people helping you get through it. 18 to 19-year-olds have the highest social support network. 20 to 24 looks like it might be in second, 15 to 17 in second. So you all have a lot of people supporting you. Now, what I think a lot of this is attributed to is, well, you're going through some stress, and so are all your friends, because all your friends are in college or going through the same thing you are. Misery loves company, right? It feels supportive. But usually you get your support network from your family members, your spouse, and any of your close friends. Unfortunately, sometimes your family members are the ones causing you the stress. If that's the case, then you need to find a new social support network. You need to find other supportive people who can be there for you. It's very, very important. It really does help in the face of stress. Aerobic exercise also helps with stress. I know you know this. Here are the reasons why. It raises energy, it increases self-confidence, lowers tension, lowers depression, lowers anxiety. Again, if you don't believe me, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. A lot of people will say to me, how does exercising give you energy? It just exhausts me. Well, here's the secret behind that. Because true, it does physically exhaust your body to exercise. But people who are generally stressed don't sleep very well. They have insomnia, or they're always having dreams about their stress, because honestly, if you're not dealing with stress in your wake hours, it will come to haunt you in your dreams. You'll have anxiety-provoking dreams. You'll have very strange dreams because your brain wants to deal with it, and it's going to do it whether you're awake or not. Okay, so people who are stressed don't tend to sleep real well. Start exercising, physically exhaust your body, and then you sleep better. You start to get some really great sleep. And then after a couple of days of this really great sleep, well, you start to feel better during the day. And now you feel like you have more energy and you just feel a lot more aware. And so it really does work. But I want to tell you about exercise, because I don't want you to think that this means you have to go out and get a gym membership. Because exercise doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be something that tortures you. You're not going to do it if it does. You can sneak exercise into your daily life. I'll give you a couple examples. Sometimes I'll go to Walmart or Target and I'll see these people driving around the parking lot 10 minutes, 15 minutes, trying to find the close parking spot, right? Well, why not park as far away as you can and use that 10 minutes to walk into Walmart, buy your groceries, buy your stuff, and then walk back out to your car another 10 minutes. You just got 20 minutes of exercise that you probably wouldn't have gotten. And you parked far away. No one probably banged into your car. So it's a win-win. Something like that. Or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. You've got to get up there anyway. Why not get a little bit of exercise? Taking your dog for a walk. Your dog will love it. You'll also get some exercise. It really only requires 20 minutes a day, 3 days a week, before you start to see a difference. 20 minutes a day. Everybody has 20 minutes a day. Take your kids to the park, and instead of sitting down on the bench and watching them, chase after them. Pretend you're the big scary monster and you're running around after them. You'll get exercise, and they'll love it. Things like that. You can try and washing your car. Right? For those of you who love your car, washing your car is aerobic exercise. Mowing the lawn for your parents. That's a great way to burn calories and get some exercise. I mean, these are things that have to be done anyway. So don't always make it like it has to be this great workout. It can just be something real simple that doesn't, require too much. All right. We don't generally talk too much about religion in psychology class. It's one of those things that can cause some real conflictual conversations. But it does come up in the stress chapter, because here's what the research shows us about religious involvement. There's 3 reasons why people who are connected to religious involvement have better health. And those 3 reasons are: usually there's healthier behaviors in any kind of religious involvement. Less smoking, less drinking. People aren't drinking and smoking at church. Secondly, the social support that comes from religious involvement, the faith communities, the friends, the families, the people that you meet. Well, that's huge. And then thirdly, the positive emotions, the hope, the optimism, the message that you get for the week. That all is less stress, less anxiety. Well, those 3 things together lead to better health, better immune system, less stress hormones, and less depression and less suicide. It gives you something weekly to look forward to and to depend on. That's why religious involvement definitely helps with stress. All right, well, that is the end of this chapter. If you have any questions, anything that I talked about, just keep a list of those questions and I will answer them for you when I see you next. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you on Friday. Bye.